Welcome to our 2032 presidential election coverage. This evening, we have incumbent President Ron DeSantis fending off not one, but two challengers. Of course, we have Democratic nominee, former Vice President Kamala Harris, who won a very hotly contested Democratic primary to become the nominee. In addition, we have an independent candidate, Governor of Hawaii Tulsi Gabbard, who has gained the most support for a third-party candidate since Ross Perot in the 1990s. So here is the Democratic ticket. We have, of course, former Vice President Kamala Harris and current Massachusetts Senator Joe Kennedy III. On the Republican ticket, we of course have incumbent Vice President Ron DeSantis and incumbent Vice President Mike Garcia. And on the independent ticket, which is in fact endorsed by the three major third parties in America, those being the Libertarian Party, the Forward Party, and the Green Party, we have, of course, Governor of Hawaii Tulsi Gabbard and Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, son of Ron Paul, of course. This is a very powerful ticket as these two candidates are from both sides of the political spectrum and have very broad appeal. Hence the fact that these two candidates' tickets combined can really bring in a lot of votes. Now here's Ron DeSantis' estimated popularity rating. Currently it is very high, about plus 12%. His Democratic approval rating is at a steady 12%, Republican is at a really high 96%, and Independent approval rating is at 75%, a key demographic that DeSantis will have to do well in order to win this election. Kamala Harris is at minus 14%. Now, if you do not know, Kamala Harris won the Democratic primary by only a number of delegates, and leaked emails show that certain DNC officials were in fact collaborating against her main opponent, Andy Beshear. There's no evidence linking Kamala Harris to this scandal. However, her popularity rating and Democrats as a whole has taken a pretty big hit. Kamala Harris has a pretty low approval rating from Democrats, only about 78%, only 3% from Republicans, and 10% from Independents. Tulsi Gabbard also broadly approved of, however, she has the highest amount of Americans who do not know who she is, at 9%. She has a strong 50% from Democrats. Considering that she was once a Democrat, it is definitely an okay rating, very mediocre. 45% from Republicans, very respectable, and the highest out of all three candidates, 77% from Independents. Very good for, of course, for an independent candidate or any candidate in general. Now here is the electoral map. All states shaded in yellow are considered too close to call, whose polling is around 3 or lower percent. We have some pretty interesting numbers here. DeSantis already has 242 electoral votes, pretty likely to go for him, and Kamala Harris is at only 192. Some states that are closer than usual, like Hawaii, Vermont, and Maine, are because of the third-party vote splitter, Tulsi Gabbard. Now, she may not be considered a vote splitter, but in these states where she's mainly getting votes from liberal Democrats, that definitely is not helping Kamala Harris. Now, in our general election polling, Kamala Harris is at 40%, DeSantis at 48%, and Tulsi Gabbard is getting the difference, around 12% so far. In Colorado, DeSantis is behind by about 5%, and Tulsi Gabbard, of course, in all these polls that do not add up to around 100%, is taking the balance of the rest. Now, in Georgia, it is now a narrow lead for Ron DeSantis, just about a point over Harris. In Hawaii, it is a three-way race where Gabbard was doing her best, currently leading both candidates. She's at 42%, Harris at 40%, and DeSantis lagging very far behind at 15%. Most Republicans in Hawaii are actually picking Gabbard to vote for over Harris. In Maine, another very close race, Tulsi Gabbard around 30% here. She's not shown on the slide. However, Kamala Harris leads otherwise. In Maine's 1st district, Ron DeSantis at 30%, Harris at 40%, and Gabbard around 30% as well. And in Michigan, Ron DeSantis has a lead about 1.2%. In Minnesota, another lead for Harris, about another 1% lead. All leads here so far are very close, and no candidate has been leading by around 2% or more so far. Now in Nevada, Ron DeSantis is actually ahead by 2.4%, the first state to break that 1% streak. And in New Hampshire, Kamala Harris is ahead by around half a point. And in North Carolina, Ron DeSantis leads by over 5.5 points. Definitely a great lead in a very key state to win any presidential election. And in Pennsylvania, Ron DeSantis leads by about 2.2%. And here is CNN's electoral map. They have Ron DeSantis getting 315 electoral votes, Kamala Harris getting 223. Interestingly enough, they do not have Tulsi Gabbard winning any states so far. Fox News has DeSantis getting 333, sweeping the Rust Belt, winning Maine at large, and New Hampshire, interesting states there. And those are both states that John Ossoff in 2028 actually won. They also do not have Tulsi Gabbard winning any states. Of course, again, it is 208 for Kamala Harris and 330 for DeSantis. MSNBC has a very interesting map as Kamala Harris wins with 288 electoral votes to Ron DeSantis' 250. Highly unlikely, as Kamala Harris is down in almost all of the polls, especially in the states that she's winning by, for example, a lean margin, like in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And Newsmax has Ron DeSantis winning 372 electoral votes. Definitely an interesting call here. He's winning places like Oregon, Virginia, and New Mexico. Definitely not very likely. And here is our current compiled Senate map. The current Senate seats up now are pretty favorable to Democrats overall. Without even winning any competitive seats, they're at 48 seats overall, Republicans at 45. For CNN, they have Democrats winning the Senate 52 to 48, pretty interesting, as they also have Kamala Harris losing the presidential race. Fox News has Republicans winning 51 to 49, and MSNBC has Democrats winning 55 to 45, another very unlikely scenario. Newsmax has Republicans winning 53 to 47, very, very interesting considering how much it had DeSantis winning by. Now here we have some polls. Stacey Abrams, who ran for president earlier this year, is now the Democrat Senate candidate trying to unseat Doug Collins. In Maine, longtime Senator Suzanne Collins has retired, and the race to succeed her is currently leading for the Democrats. Shanna Bellows is leading Bruce Poliquin. And in Michigan, Democrats really tried to unseat John James here, who won in what could be considered an upset in 2026 during a very unpopular year for the Democrats. They currently have a candidate leading by around half a point. And in Minnesota, Jake Sullivan, a national security official from the Obama-Biden era and also from the Ossoff administration, is currently leading former Lieutenant Governor and current Representative Michelle Fischbach. And in New Hampshire, it is a very, very close race. Chris Pappas is currently trailing Chris Sununu by 0.3% in the Battle of the Chris's. And in North Carolina, Josh Stein, the current very popular governor, definitely independently popular compared to the National Democrats, is leading Mark Walker, incumbent senator, who succeeded Tom Tillis in 2026 by around 0.3%. Democrats definitely brought their A game to this race tonight and invested a lot of resources into the Senate seat. In Texas, Julian Castro is currently lagging behind Dan Crenshaw by around 2.5%. The Texas Senate seat went to Beto O'Rourke in 2030, and the governor's seat went to a Democrat-aligned independent, Matthew McConaughey, in that year as well. Democrats are very hopeful of victory here in Texas tonight, and that Julian Castro can outperform Kamala Harris enough to beat Dan Crenshaw. And here are the most important issues according to Pew Research. 50% say the economy, 25% say the Iran war, which President DeSantis was very popular for handling well. 15% say climate change, 5% say immigration, and another 5% list their issue as other. And the state of the nation, 45% say it is better than 4 years ago, 30% say worse, 20% say the same, and 5% are unsure. And in party affiliation, Republicans have taken the lead with 36%, 33% are registered Democrats, and a very high 31% are registered as independents, the highest in a very long time. And we now have reached our 7 p.m. Eastern Time poll closings out of several key states like Georgia and Virginia, along with Vermont, a state that might be unusually close. We can project Indiana will easily go to Ron DeSantis, another 11 electoral votes into the president's column. And Kentucky, 8 electoral votes will go into the DeSantis column. South Carolina, 9 electoral votes will easily go to Ron DeSantis. Virginia, 13 electoral votes, Kamala Harris doing pretty well here. Looks like she's easily on track to win this state. And in Vermont, we can project that Kamala Harris will win by around 4%, as Tulsi Gabbard is outperforming expectations. As you can see, she's winning the county that is home to Burlington, very liberal area of which Bernie Sanders is from. Ron DeSantis lags behind around 8% behind Kamala Harris. And in Georgia, too close to call, early vote has Harris winning. And in Kentucky, Daniel Cameron will win election to the Senate. South Carolina, Eric Bolling will win election to the Senate. And in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, actually outperforming Kamala Harris, will win this Senate seat. In Georgia, too close to call, Stacey Abrams outperforming Kamala Harris by around 5% over Doug Collins. Indiana, Jim Banks will win election to the governorship. And in Vermont, TJ Donovan won another term as governor of Vermont. And we have a 7:30 p.m. poll closing out of several key states like Ohio and North Carolina. We can now project Ohio immediately for Ron DeSantis. We can also project West Virginia for Ron DeSantis. North Carolina is too close to call, DeSantis leading by around 15%. In West Virginia, Pat McGeehan will win election to the Senate. And in North Carolina, too close to call, Mark Walker currently leading. As you can see, Josh Stein is also outperforming Kamala Harris on the Senate ballot. West Virginia, Caleb Hanna, a possible contender for the 2036 presidential election, has won re-election as West Virginia governor. Very popular, definitely a rising star in the Republican Party. In North Carolina, Sherry Beasley is trailing Dan Forest by about 9% in a very close race for North Carolina governor. And here is the current electoral map. 48 electoral votes for DeSantis, 16 for Harris, none for Tulsi Gabbard. And the Senate map, it is 31 seats for the Republicans and about 40 for the Democrats. Democrats definitely have an advantage in seats so far. They are already pretty far ahead of the Republicans without winning any close races. And now we have our 8 p.m. poll closing out of the largest batch of states so far. Out of Alabama, Ron DeSantis will easily carry the state's 8 electoral votes. Alabama was one of the states that actually lost an electoral vote in the 2030 census. Maine's 2nd district will easily go to Ron DeSantis, having trended very far to the right in recent years. And interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard is actually taking 2nd place instead of Kamala Harris. Mississippi, 6 electoral votes will easily fall into the DeSantis column. And in Missouri, 10 electoral votes will go to the incumbent president. And in Oklahoma, another 10 electoral votes will go to DeSantis. Tennessee, 11 electoral votes will go to the incumbent president. And in Connecticut, 7 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. Delaware, 3 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. Illinois, 18 electoral votes for Kamala Harris, another state that lost electoral votes over the 2030 census. Maryland, 10 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. And in Massachusetts, home of vice presidential candidate Joe Kennedy III, 11 electoral votes will go in blue yet again. New Jersey, 14 electoral votes into the Harris column. And in Rhode Island, 4 electoral votes will fall into the Democratic hands. Washington, D.C., the most liberal area of the country, 3 electoral votes will easily go to Kamala Harris, another place where Tulsi Gabbard is doing pretty well. In Florida, too close to call, DeSantis leads by about 10%. This is his home state, and he already has 50%. Very few votes are going to Gabbard, interestingly enough. In Maine, currently it is too close to call, 37% for Harris, about a 4% lead over DeSantis, and 8% over Tulsi Gabbard. And in Maine's 1st district, it is about 0.3% lead for Kamala Harris over Tulsi Gabbard. Pretty liberal area, very, very close so far. And New Hampshire, DeSantis is leading by around 0.1%, very heated. And in Pennsylvania, DeSantis has about a 4% lead over Harris. And in Alabama, we can project that John MERRILL will win election to the United States Senate. Mississippi, Chris McDaniel will win election to the United States Senate. And in Colorado, Kevin Stitt, former governor, will win a 6-year term to the United States Senate. Tennessee, MANNY SETHI will be winning his 1st term as Tennessee Senator. In Delaware, Chris Coons will win another term as Delaware Senator, another longtime member of the United States Senate. Illinois, Lauren Underwood, a Democratic rising star, but very progressive, has won election to Senate. And in Massachusetts, Maura Healey will win election to the United States Senate. And in New Jersey, Cory Booker will be going back to the Senate for another 6 years. Rhode Island, Peter Nerona will be winning his term as Rhode Island Senator. And in Maine, too close to call between Shannon Bellows and Bruce Poliquin. New Hampshire, currently Chris Sununu outperforming Ron DeSantis, leading by around 8% over Chris Pappas. And in Missouri, Jay Ashcroft will win his 2nd term as governor. In Delaware, Matthew Dent will win another term himself as Delaware governor. And New Hampshire, too close to call, and as Joyce Craig leads over her Republican opponent. The current electoral map has Ron DeSantis at 91 electoral votes and Kamala Harris at 86. Senate map has Democrats already at 45 electoral votes, while Republicans are at 35. However, the Republican Party has not tapped into those great number of seats in the Midwest that could definitely help them gain in the near future. Now for 8:30 p.m. poll closings out of Arkansas. This state will easily go to Ron DeSantis, and Tom Cotton will easily win election on the United States Senate level. We now have our 9 p.m. poll closing, some of the largest amounts of electoral votes up this evening. Kansas will easily go to Ron DeSantis. Louisiana, 8 electoral votes will fall into the DeSantis column. And in Nebraska, 4 out of the 5 electoral votes will go red yet again. North Dakota, 3 electoral votes will go to DeSantis, and South Dakota, yet another 3 going to the incumbent president. Wyoming, 3 electoral votes will go to DeSantis. New Mexico, 5 electoral votes going to Kamala Harris. New York, 27 electoral votes going to Harris. And in Colorado, too close to call, around a 2.4% lead for Harris. Michigan, DeSantis has an 8% lead. In Minnesota, DeSantis has around a 6% lead. And in Nebraska's 2nd district, DeSantis has a 4% lead. This is one of Tulsi Gabbard's worst areas in the country, very moderate and suburban, definitely not her type of voters. In Texas, Ron DeSantis has a 9% lead. And in Wisconsin, DeSantis has a 12% lead, very big, probably will narrow over time. And we now have a key race alert. That means we can either update data or call a key race. We can project Florida will go to its former governor, incumbent president Ron DeSantis. 31 votes, electoral votes that is, going to Ron DeSantis, a big win for him this evening. We can also project the key state of North Carolina will go to Ron DeSantis, another 17 electoral votes into the president's column. And in Kansas, Derek Schmidt will win election to United States Senate. In Louisiana, Steve Scalise will win election to United States Senate. And in Nebraska, Ben Sasse will win another term as Nebraska Senator. And in South Dakota, Stace Nelson will win election for his first 6 years. And in Wyoming, Edward Buchanan will win his first 6 years as Wyoming Senator. And in Colorado, Jared Polis, his first term as well as United States Senator from Colorado. New Mexico, Ben Ray Lujan, currently outperforming Kamala Harris, interestingly enough, will win his another 6 years as Senator from New Mexico. In Michigan, John James currently leading Haley Stevens by around 3%. In Minnesota, Jake Sullivan is leading Michelle Fischbach by around 7%. And in Texas, Dan Crenshaw leading Cleon Castro by around just under 7% as well. North Dakota, Brent Sanford will win another term as governor. And we have another key race alert. Let's see what it is. We can project that Joyce Craig will win another term as New Hampshire governor, very popular in the state. And on the electoral map, Ron DeSantis is at 172 electoral votes, Kamala Harris at 118. And on the Senate level, Democrats are a mere 3 seats away from getting 50 seats, and of course 4 from gaining an absolute majority. They of course would need 3 seats if Kamala Harris wins in that unlikely scenario, 4 seats to win if Ron DeSantis prevails as president. We now have our 9 p.m. Eastern Time poll closings. We can project that Iowa will easily go to Ron DeSantis, once a solid Democratic state, now a solid Republican state. Montana, 4 electoral votes will easily go to DeSantis, and Utah, 6 electoral votes will fall into the president's column. Arizona, too close to call, DeSantis has an 18% lead, the rest of the vote go into Tulsi Gabbard. In Nevada, DeSantis has a 15% lead, of course the rest of this vote is also going to Gabbard. And we currently have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. Nebraska's 2nd district will easily go to Ron DeSantis, very popular here in this moderate suburban area. In Texas, 41 electoral votes, one of the biggest prizes up this evening, will go to the incumbent president, big win for him. And in Iowa, Kim Reynolds will win election to the Senate, very popular. In Montana, Austin Knudsen will win election to the Senate. And in Utah, Sean Reyes will win another term as governor. Montana governor, it is too close to call. John Noki currently has a 7% lead over the popular Democratic governor Jon Tester. Tester has actually distanced himself from Kamala Harris and left it ambiguous to who he supports in this race, an attempt to seem to become more popular than the Democrats and not tie himself too much to the federal Democratic Party. And we now have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. We can project that Dan Forest has beat Cherry Beasley and will win his first term as North Carolina governor, replacing incumbent governor Josh Stein, who is still locked in a tight race for Senate. And the electoral map, Ron DeSantis at 230 electoral votes. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris still lagging behind at 118. No votes yet for Gabbard. And on the Senate map, the Republicans have gone up to 41 seats. Democrats stay still at 47. And we now have our 11 p.m. poll closings out of the Pacific Coast. The state of Idaho will easily go to Ron DeSantis, and then an interesting state as it gained an electoral vote over the 2030 census. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's home state of California, 53 electoral votes, still the biggest state in the union, will easily go to their former senator. In Oregon, 8 electoral votes go to Harris. In Washington, 13 electoral votes, another state that gained over the 2030 census, will go to the former vice president. And in Hawaii, too close to call, Gabbard currently leads by about 1%. And we now have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. We can project Colorado's 11 electoral votes to Kamala Harris. And we can also project that the Idaho Senate will go to Russ Fulcher. And the Oregon Senate will go to Steve Novick. And we now have a key race alert. Let's see what this is. Texas Senate will go to Dan Crenshaw. Definitely a massive loss for Democrats, but not surprising given that Ron DeSantis just won it only very shortly ago. Washington Governor will go to Bob Ferguson. And the current electoral vote, Kamala Harris has passed the 200 electoral vote threshold, DeSantis at 235, Harris at 203, Tulsi Gabbard still at 0. And on the Senate map, Democrats have gained 1 seat, now 48. There are no more state Democratic seats left, so they'll have to win around 2 or 3 seats to, of course, to take the Senate, depending on whether Kamala Harris or DeSantis wins as president. And the Republicans, same thing, but in their case, 5 or 6. And we now have our 1 a.m. poll closings out of the state of Alaska. Currently too close to call, DeSantis leads by 13%, Tulsi Gabbard actually outperforming Kamala Harris in second place. Meanwhile, on the Senate level, Al Gross, a very, an independent, very well known now, doing very well given Tulsi Gabbard's independent coattails, is actually in a very close third between Dave Bronson, incumbent senator, and Les Gara, a state senator. Now, here we have some county maps to show. As you can see, the Alaska vote totals have been updated. Tulsi Gabbard is now around 12% behind. Kamala Harris lagging behind at 20%. Of course, Ron DeSantis in the lead. In the Arizona level, Tulsi Gabbard not winning any counties, of course. Ron DeSantis at 50%, Kamala Harris at 44%. DeSantis is doing very well in Maricopa County, home of Phoenix, and a key area for anyone who wants to win the state to gain it. On the Georgia presidential level, Kamala Harris still lags behind at 6%, not good. And in Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard has expanded her lead to around 4%. And in the Maine presidential election, we can show that Ron DeSantis is leading by just under 3%. And in Michigan, around a 5% lead for President DeSantis. Really interesting results, as Kamala Harris so far is doing pretty well in the Upper Peninsula, but we expect that to change as more votes come in. And on the Minnesota presidential level, about a 4% lead for DeSantis, again, not good for Kamala Harris. And on the Nevada presidential level, as you can see, Tulsi Gabbard getting 20% of the vote so far, but overall, Ron DeSantis leading his next main challenger, Kamala Harris, by around 7%. And in New Hampshire, Tulsi Gabbard actually leaning by around 0.2%, winning some of the most populous counties in the state, doing very well here overall. And in Pennsylvania, Ron DeSantis has an 8% lead, very, very big. As you can see this current county map, he's actually winning Allegheny County, home of Pittsburgh. We expect that to change as well, but overall doing very well. And in Wisconsin, it is around a 6% lead for Ron DeSantis. Tulsi Gabbard getting around 23% of the vote, Kamala Harris at 34%. And here on the Alaska Senate level, Al Gross has actually taken the lead. And remember, Alaska does have a ranked choice voting system. The top 2 vote getters will move on to the final. So considering that maybe a lot of Democrats might vote for Al Gross, if he takes the top spot, he could potentially beat out Dave Bronson. Now on the Georgia Senate level, it is very, very close. Stacey Abrams leads by around 0.5%. John Mon, the Libertarian, actually getting a lot of voters who would not normally come out due to Tulsi Gabbard's coattails, are at around 6%. And in the Maine Senate level, very close, Jenna Bellows has fallen behind Bruce Poliquin, now losing by around 1.7%. Now on the Michigan Senate level, another independent gaining a lot of voters who would not usually vote, Justin Amash, has around 7.5%. Meanwhile, Haley Stevens still leading John James by around 1.6%. And in Minnesota, it is really close, under 1,000 votes separates Michelle Fischbach and Jake Sullivan. Sullivan definitely outperforming Kamala Harris and all the Democrats at this level. And in New Hampshire, Chris Pappas has taken the lead again in the battle of the Chris's. As you can see, Chris Sununu lags behind at 48.4%, Chris Pappas at 49%. And in North Carolina, Josh Stein has a pretty big lead, around 3.7%, doing very well. And in the Montana governor race, it is very, very close. John Noki only leads by around 45 votes. That is how close it is currently. Definitely any number of vote dumps could change the outcome of this race. And we now have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. And the Alaska presidential level, Ron DeSantis will win by around 3.2%. Tulsi Gabbard coming in second, and a major win for independents across the board. As well, Ron DeSantis will win the Arizona presidential election by around 3.5%. And in Wisconsin, he will win by around 5%. Tulsi Gabbard doing pretty well, as you can see, winning several counties across the state and taking a lot from Kamala Harris's vote total. And the Michigan Senate race, a big loss for Democrats. John James will actually win by around 0.2%. Despite there being a right-wing candidate, he will win. This is a very, very big blow for Democrats who were really relying on Kerry in this race. They thought they could beat out John James, but they weren't able to in the end. And in the New Hampshire Senate race, we can project that Chris Sununu will win. This is actually a shock, as Chris Pappas was leading in polls, but Chris Sununu, very popular, and he will win by around 3%. Democrats definitely underestimated his popularity, and polls also as well. Electoral map has Ron DeSantis at 259 electoral votes, a mere 11 away from victory. Kamala Harris remains at 203, Tulsi Gabbard still at 0. And on the Senate level, Republicans have caught up, now at 47 Senate seats, and Democrats at 48. They have not gained in a while. Democrats and Republicans are both fighting to win these highly competitive seats left. And we now, at 2 a.m., have some call retractions out of Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia. With updated data, we now are going to retract our call for these states, and you'll see why soon. In Colorado, Ron DeSantis has taken the lead, Tulsi Gabbard outperforming expectations, Kamala Harris underperforming as a whole. And this has led us to retract our call of Colorado and is now in the too close to call column. Same thing in New Mexico, DeSantis also leading, Tulsi Gabbard outperforming as well. And in Virginia, Ron DeSantis actually leading by around 4%. His performance was large enough that we're now retracting our call out of the state that we called initially. And we now have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. We can project that Tulsi Gabbard will win the state of Hawaii by about 1%. A massive, massive win for third-party candidates everywhere. She will now become the first candidate, the third-party candidate, to win electoral votes since 1968, in about 5 decades, since she's the first since George Wallace. A major win for Gabbard, though it is around statistically unlikely that she will win the presidential race. This is definitely good for Gabbard, and this sets her up for a potential run in the future as an independent, or for any party that she chooses. Now out of Maine, another win for Tulsi Gabbard, under percent this time, around 0.9%, but she will beat out Ron DeSantis in Maine's 1st district. This is a pretty liberal area, and Tulsi Gabbard has some progressive appeal that has allowed her to win this, bringing her up not only from Hawaii, but now winning two states, essentially, though Maine is a district. Maine's 1st is a district. She's now become, again, she's still she's the first candidate since 1968 not only to win 1 electoral vote, but 2, in fact, in a state, or 2 in a district. And in Nevada, we can project that Ron DeSantis will carry the state yet again. A big win. This was a big win for him back in 2028 when he carried the state over Jon Ossoff. And in Georgia, a major loss for the Democrats. Doug Collins, incumbent senator, will defeat Stacey Abrams by around 1%. Same thing here as in Michigan. Despite a right-wing candidate, Doug Collins has actually won, in fact. Democrats were really counting on winning this race, and they really thought they could. Stacey Abrams on paper is a good candidate. However, she did not bring enough energy and was tied too much to Kamala Harris. Plus, she also ran for president, so that likely hurt her a lot with voters in Georgia. Now, Ron DeSantis is a mere 4 electoral votes away from victory. Tulsi Gabbard has reached 5 electoral votes, and Kamala Harris has actually dropped down to 175, as retracted Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia. On the Senate level, both parties are tied at 48 seats each, and we now have around 4 states still left to call: Alaska, Maine, Minnesota, and North Carolina. And we have a key race projection. That means we can now project who will be the next president of the United States. Will it be Ron DeSantis continuing his term, Kamala Harris, even though that is rather unlikely, and of course Tulsi Gabbard's out of the race, but we will have to see who will be the next president of the United States. And Ron DeSantis, we can now project, has won re-election. He was simply too popular for the Democrats to beat, and he will continue as president for another 4 years. Big win for Republicans, and let's see the state that put him over the top. It was in fact Michigan. He will win by around 4.4%. Interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard gained around 15% of the vote and 3 counties across the state. Kamala Harris definitely underperformed overall, and Michigan is not a state she was expected to do well in. However, this state will be the one that puts DeSantis over the top. And in New Hampshire, Ron DeSantis will win this state as well by around 3%. Tulsi Gabbard actually coming in second here, but Ron DeSantis doing very well with many moderate voters, the same ones that voted for Kristen Sununu and other moderate Republicans in the past. We can also project the state of Pennsylvania for Ron DeSantis. He wins by around 3%, 43%, Kamala Harris is 40%, Tulsi Gabbard taking around 15% and winning Center County. Of course, that being the one, as it is named, the center. This is a big win for Ron DeSantis in a state that he's doing pretty well in across all demographics, not only the traditional rural and working class voters for Republicans, but also suburban voters that Republicans have not won in a long time. And in North Carolina, another major loss for Democrats. Josh Stein will lose the North Carolina Senate race to incumbent Senator Mark Walker. He was expected to win this according to polling, and Democrats poured a lot of money into this race. Big loss for Democrats overall. And on the electoral map, as you can see, Ron DeSantis has surpassed the magic number of 270, now at 302 electoral votes. Kamala Harris and Tulsi Gabbard's vote totals remain the same at 5 electoral votes for Gabbard and 175 for Harris. And on the Senate map, Republicans are a mere 1 seat away from winning the majority, as we now know that Ron DeSantis will become the next president of the United States. 3 states up for grabs, however, Democrats still have 48. And a key race alert, let's see what it is. We can project the Colorado presidential race will actually in fact go to Ron DeSantis by around 0.4%. Major win for DeSantis, not expected to win the state initially. We even had to retract the call earlier for Harris, but Ron DeSantis will win the state in the end. He also wins the state of Georgia by around 3%. Big loss for Kamala Harris overall, and Tulsi Gabbard not winning any counties here or a major portion of the vote. And in Maine, another major loss for Democrats. Tulsi Gabbard narrowly edging out Kamala Harris for second place as Ron DeSantis takes 34% of the vote. Maine was once a safe Democratic area and now shifting to the right, interestingly enough. And in Virginia, another big win for Ron DeSantis, outperforming expectations. This is one of the first states we called for Kamala Harris, and we're now retracting it for Ron DeSantis. And we can also project that Republicans will win the United States Senate. This will further help DeSantis going along in his second term. This is because we can project Al Gross as the winner in the Alaska Senate race. Now you might be asking why an independent winning would put the Republicans over the top, but this is because Al Gross has announced that he will in fact caucus with the Republicans, while still being an independent in his own right, much like Bernie Sanders or Angus King in the past. Al Gross will be caucusing with the Republicans. He is much more of a moderate and might identify more with Ron DeSantis' moderate Republican brand. He'll beat out Dave Bronson, winning most of the Democratic votes, and as you can see, Alaska at large. As you can see now, John Thune and the Republicans have reached 50 seats, meaning that they have won the Senate race. Democrats still lag behind at 48 and will try to make the best of their situation by winning Minnesota and Maine, 2 states that they're widely expected to win overall. And of course on the electoral map for the president, Ron DeSantis at 344, Tulsi Gabbard still at 5, and Harris still at 175. Only 2 states left to call, but Ron DeSantis doing the best that any candidate has since Barack Obama in 2008. We'll see if he can pass 350 electoral votes, which would be the largest again since Obama, but no candidate has even come close to surpassing that level in recent years. And out of Maine Senate, we can show that Chinabellos only leads by 0.5%, a very tight race. And in Minnesota, Jake Sullivan has taken the lead by around another 0.4%, about exactly the same as Chinabellos, interestingly enough. In the Montana governor race, Jon Tester has taken the lead by around 5,000 votes. It is intensely close. Democrats have lost enough key races tonight that they at least want to hold on to the Montana governorship. And we have a key race alert. Let's see what it is. We can project that Ron DeSantis will win Minnesota on a presidential level. This is a very tight race. He wins with under 40% of the vote. However, he will win nonetheless. Tulsi Gabbard doing very well, winning around 25% of the vote and many counties. And in New Mexico, we can also project that Ron DeSantis will win this state. A lot of votes splitting for Harris and Tulsi Gabbard. Combined, they are around 50%, over 50% of the vote. But of course, split, they have underneath that. And Ron DeSantis has 41% of the vote, still an overperformance for most Republicans. And the main Senate race, a massive shock. Bruce Poliquin will actually win this Senate race by under 1%, 0.6% to be exact. This was a state Democrats were widely expected to win, even more so than Georgia or Michigan. Shanna Bellows has obviously not succeeded in winning. This is very similar to 2020, for example, when Suzanne Collins beat out Sarah Gideon, despite being Sarah Gideon widely expected to win. However, some good news for Democrats, they will win possibly their first and only key race tonight. Jake Sullivan will win by about 1%, defeating Michelle Fischbach. And in the Montana governor race, yet another key race win for Democrats. However, this might only be this, along with Minnesota, are the only ones. We can project that Jon Tester will win by around 0.1%. This was an insanely tight race, and Jon Tester only won by removing himself from the National Democratic Party and campaigning as his own independent politician. Republicans put up their best in John Noki, but were not able to overcome the popularity of Jon Tester. And on the electoral map, here are the margins. Ron DeSantis at 358 electoral votes, Kamala Harris at 175, and Tulsi Gabbard at 5. Let's check out some interesting margins here. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, and Wisconsin were all likely states, interestingly enough. Very big wins for Republicans here, despite these states usually being closer. In addition, New Mexico, Georgia, Virginia, Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maine at large, and New Hampshire were all considered lean. You would expect these to be tilt, but Ron DeSantis was strong enough, along with Tulsi Gabbard in some of these cases, to win these states. Certain states like Vermont, Connecticut, and New Jersey were lean because of Tulsi Gabbard's strength, and Ron DeSantis doing better than expected. In addition, Washington, Oregon, Illinois, and New Jersey, to name a few, and New York, were all likely given Tulsi Gabbard and Ron DeSantis' strength. These states are usually considered safe easily for Democrats, however they were not in this case. And here is the electoral map where Tulsi Gabbard did the best. The darkest shades, purple, are where Tulsi Gabbard won the state's electoral votes, those being Hawaii and Maine's first district. The second darkest shade of purple are states where Tulsi Gabbard came second. The next lightest are ones where Tulsi Gabbard won multiple counties, and the lightest being where she only won a single county. So you have some very, very interesting results here. As you can see, South Dakota and Pennsylvania both have, and Vermont and Rhode Island all have Tulsi Gabbard winning one county. Very interesting, considering the fact that some of these states like South Dakota went to DeSantis by pretty large margins. And of course, for South Dakota, not being a very Democratic state at all. But overall, Tulsi Gabbard won a county in a lot of states. And in the end, this would have actually put her at the top if she won every single state that she won a county in, and even if you exclude South Dakota for that matter. And here is a county map in all its glory. Thank you to your boy Alex for making this map and all the other county maps you see in this video. Now, as you can see, here are some pretty interesting results to dissect. You can look at where Ron DeSantis overperformed, and you look where Tulsi Gabbard performed her best. For example, Tulsi Gabbard won several counties in California that Kamala Harris otherwise would have won. Did very well in South Texas, and in the Rust Belt, she won some formerly Democratic areas. Now, Ron DeSantis, of course, did well in all the traditional Republican areas. Actually won Miami-Dade County, very big win, and for him out of Florida. And also, as you can see, did very well in the Pacific Coast. He won Orange County, San Diego, Imperial, and San Bernardino. And now we have our popular vote. DeSantis won plenty. I believe DeSantis actually did not get over half of the vote. However, he beat out Kamala Harris by one of the largest margins ever, 10 million votes. As you can see, Tulsi Gabbard got around 15% of the vote. Definitely a pretty big total, and the best for any candidate since Ross Perot. However, as opposed to Ross Perot, Tulsi Gabbard had enough support concentrated in areas to win electoral votes. And here are our exit polls. Men voted for Ron DeSantis by an overwhelming margin, and female voters were pretty split. Tulsi Gabbard did pretty well here. White voters also voted overwhelmingly for DeSantis, though Kamala Harris did very well with black voters, and Tulsi Gabbard and Ron DeSantis did very poorly. Hispanic and Latino voters were split as well. Tulsi Gabbard did very well with them. However, Ron DeSantis actually won this category overall. Now, if you look at the age groups, Tulsi Gabbard did very well in the 18 to 29 range and 30 to 44 range. However, as you get older and older, all of these races started becoming more and more of a blowout for Ron DeSantis. Voters with a college degree actually preferred Ron DeSantis by around 12%, and Tulsi Gabbard as well was pretty much tied with Kamala Harris. Voters with no college degree voted for Ron DeSantis, Tulsi Gabbard, and Kamala Harris, and that, of course, and they're most likely to vote for each candidate in that order. And now, for those with the lowest income, they preferred DeSantis overall, though this is one of the areas where Kamala Harris did best in. For voters with $50,000 to around $100,000 of income, it was also very split, but preferred DeSantis by around 3%. Voters with $100,000 plus income voted for DeSantis by around 20%, not including Tulsi Gabbard's vote splitting. Voters said the situation was better than 4 years ago, overwhelmingly voted for Ron DeSantis by around 83 to 10. Those said the situation was worse, actually very split. Only 46% voted for Kamala Harris, the rest voted for Gabbard, and of course 22% voted for DeSantis, which is unusually high. Those said their situation were the same actually preferred Ron DeSantis by a large margin, which is a very key factor in winning re-election. The rest, 30% voted for Kamala Harris, and the rest voted for Gabbard. Now on the Senate map, here are some pretty interesting results. Democrats only won a single key race of Senate seats, while they were expected to win multiple. They're expected to win Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Maine, and lost all but Minnesota. In addition, states like Colorado, Oregon, New Mexico, and Virginia were closer than expected. It's rather interesting that Abigail Spanberger, for example, in Virginia, was able to win. However, her moderate brand sold pretty well with voters. Now we can look to the Senate county map. As you can see, very interesting results, not including considering the fact that there were no third-party spoilers in this election. Now, one interesting place I'd like to point your attention towards is Texas, in which Dan Crenshaw did very well with suburban voters. For example, in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, he won Tarrant, Denton, and Collin County with around 50 to 60% of the vote. Definitely a major victory. Oh, my apologies. Definitely a very big victory, considering these counties are trending towards the left and voted for Beto O'Rourke in the 2030 elections. Now we go to our governor's map. Currently, Democrats actually have a lead given how well they did in the 2030 midterms. However, they lost the seat of North Carolina, barely held on to Montana by very, very small margin, and held on to New Hampshire as well. On the governor map, as you can see, it's very interesting to contrast certain governor races. For example, look at Montana and New Hampshire, and look back at the Senate and presidential races. Montana, of course, Jon Tester narrowly won by a very small margin, outperforming Democrats on the presidential level and Senate level by a very large margin. In addition, Joyce Craig also outperformed Chris Pappas and Kamala Harris by another really large margin, far more popular than either candidate. And now we have our House map. Sorry, that says county map. It should say congressional map. Now, independent candidates did very well. Mark Buttigieg, a former senator, won the Alaska House Representatives race and is considered currently the de facto leader of the independent caucus. However, this is all speculation as to there's no official leader so far, as there is not an independent party. But anyway, moving on. Republicans won around 231 seats, flipping back a lot of seats won in the blue wave of 2030. In addition, independents won in a lot of working class areas. They actually won both congressional seats in Maine, one in New Hampshire, and several working class areas across the map, including one in the Iron Range in Minnesota and in Nevada, along with a very Hispanic district in Texas. Democrats lost a lot of their gains in 2030, especially in suburban areas, in which Republicans did very well due to Ron DeSantis' strength with those voters. And now Kamala Harris has conceded the race. She confirmed that she called Ron DeSantis to concede, and has said that this will be, of course, her last presidential run, which is not surprising, but given the fact that Kamala Harris has run for president several times, it is essentially something that needs to be said. Now, President Ron DeSantis has declared victory, confirming that Kamala Harris called him in order to concede. Ron DeSantis has won in one of the biggest landslide victories in American history, and has won with the biggest amount of electoral votes since 2008, over 2 decades ago. Ron DeSantis' landslide victory shows a popular mandate, given that he is very popular. Now, as the second term begins, he will likely be trying to pass even more of his agenda than in 2028. And as we look towards 2036, there are a number of Republican rising stars that could replace him. Not only is there Mike Garcia, but there are Republicans like Caleb Hanna, who we mentioned earlier, who could potentially replace him. Well, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I worked really hard on this, and I hope if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe for more content like this, and comment your thoughts. Thank you so much to Chaotic Politics for helping with the creative process, naming almost all of the candidates in the down ballot races. Your boy Alex worked overtime to make these fantastic county maps, and I really appreciate that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.